Right now, several states across the country are in a mad rush to execute people on death row. With so many lives at stake, communities of faith are standing up in opposition to this continuation of the cycle of violence. There are 3 simple ways communities of faith can help. First, add a special time of prayer during your services prior to a scheduled execution. We ask that you pray for the victim's family, the offender and their family, legal teams, court officials, executioners, and others impacted. Second, toll a bell for 2 minutes on the day of an execution. If you don't have a bell, display a banner or sign showing your opposition to the death penalty. Third, go to our website, forwhomthebellstoll.org, to learn more about our movement. Order an action kit unique to your state and register your participation. We must act now because time is running out for so many men and women on death row. Together, we can abolish the death penalty.
All right, good evening. My name is Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood. We have a number of folks on the call tonight, and we gather to discuss the upcoming executions in the month of February. And at this hour, as we talked about praying and joining together to think about what is coming, I want us to all approach this moment, this time, with a prayerful spirit that these executions might not happen. And we talk about these executions because they're scheduled, not because we want them to happen, not even because we are praying that they are praying with an expectation that they're going to happen. I encourage us to continue to have this expectation that if we pray and if we work and if we move, if we shake, that it is possible that these executions still will not happen. With that said, I wanted to I will jump over to Maria. Can you hear me from Florida?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm in the car, so I'm going to keep my video off because I'm driving and it's dark.
Oh, that's perfect. Just wanted to ask just about what y'all have going on and what's going on in the coming weeks there in Florida to oppose the execution.
Sure. So the governor last week signed the execution warrant for Donald Dillbeck and set the date for February 23rd at 6 p.m. I've been in contact with the legal team, and Florida's a little bit different than some other states when clemency is denied at the signing of the warrant. So it's not like there's a formal clemency process. However, the governor, in his discretion, can reopen clemency. So that is the action that we are going to be, in support of the lawyers, asking our supporters to do. So in the coming days and weeks, I'll be giving a little more information about the specific ask. But just to kind of give you a quick background, Mr. Dillbeck was sent to prison at the age of 15. Sentenced to life without the possibility of parole because he did a plea to avoid the death penalty. They were seeking the death penalty against him. And during his time in prison, he was sent to one of Florida's most horrific prisons. He had to fight to survive. He learned to keep his head on a swivel. He was in danger many, many, many days, and turned to drugs and alcohol in prison as a way to cope. And he was on a work detail at a catering event, and he just sort of saw an opportunity and walked away. So his escape was not in any way violent or pre-planned or calculated. He just walked away, desperate and on the run. He committed a brutal murder of a woman in Tallahassee, and was ultimately sentenced to death. Interestingly, 4 of his jurors voted for life. So in no other state in the country would he have been sentenced to death. Mr. Dillbeck was born to an alcohol addicted mother who drank 3 to 4 6-packs a day. He was physically and sexually abused by her, finally removed from her care at the age of 6, and taken into foster care, separated from his sister, the only person who had ever cared about him, and was adopted by a family who did their best, but gave no psychological treatment, no intervention. And unfortunately, the damage to his brain and to his emotional development had already been done by the years of alcohol from his mother and the extreme abuse that he suffered, which of course led him to going to prison at 15. So in the intervening 30 some years that he's been incarcerated in Florida's death row, he's clean and sober. He has a relationship with numerous pen pals throughout the world. I've been in contact with several of them who support him. He writes, he has a blog that he talks about meditation and peace and forgiveness and spirituality. And he's really a remarkable human, and of course not in any way the same person that committed this brutal act in 1990. So we will be asking, the lawyers will be asking the governor to reconsider clemency, to consider commuting his sentence to life in prison without the possibility of parole, because he is of course not in any way a danger and has spent the last 3 decades trying to atone for the terrible crime that he's committed. So that's where we are. Florida does a pretty quick turnaround, so we've got about three to 4 weeks. And in the coming days, I'll be sending more information to Abe on how you all can help. And I'm the executive director for Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. And I think we have, CJF has our website up there. So definitely go join, sign up for our action alerts and our newsletter, and stay tuned for the coming information.
Thank you, Maria. Just a quick question before we move on. Is there any, I know you talked about the governor, and I know that you talked about efforts to get him to, I guess, have some compassion. Is there any other ongoing litigation still out?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be litigation in the state and federal courts specifically challenging the non-unanimous jury vote. And of course, the law has changed in Florida. Now unanimity is required. So the lawyers will be following all of those legal challenges. And also the fact that he was sentenced to life in prison at 15 is, of course, now in a legal sentence in light of Miller and Graham. And so the lawyers are challenging that underlying conviction as well. But most of his legal challenges have already been addressed and rejected. Over the years, there's always one last flurry of litigation, and that will happen here. But I think the sort of, to be realistic in the sense of, given the Florida courts and the federal courts, the best chance for any kind of relief is through the action.
Maria, I had a quick follow-up, and then I promise I will let you go. But I was also curious, the non-unanimous jury piece of the equation, has that been, I mean, Abe, you might have an answer to this, but has that been litigated from Florida already?
Oh yes, like for years and years and years. And so when Hearst came out in 2016, they changed, basically the Florida Supreme Court gave about half of a third or so of people on death row relief. Anybody whose case was final after 2002 got an opportunity for a resentencing. And the sort of unfairness and the arbitrariness of that has been litigated up and down in the federal courts and state courts. But of course, they always keep trying and will continue to try. And especially now that the law has changed and unanimity is required, they'll make that argument. I believe he's the first post-Hearst execution of a non-unanimous, because the other 3 that DeSantis signed were all unanimous jury verdicts. So he's the first one that's non-unanimous. But that specific issue has been litigated and denied, but not specifically under court.
And it just seems like Mr. Dilbeck is just so much has gone wrong in his life, of course, but also has gone wrong with the system. And it seems like it's our failings that he is feels like he's being condemned for, not necessarily his failings.
Oh yeah, the system failed him. I mean, the system failed this child from birth, and then the legal system failed him too.
Maria, thank you very much. Next.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're going to be with you. And
Maria, I just want to say we're so grateful for you to being here, and looking forward to working with you, and also just drive safely. And
thank you. And I'll be in touch in the coming weeks for sure, the coming days.
Okay, thank you. And while Maria was speaking, I was sharing the webpage of Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, as well as the some images from the petition that we have up in this case for death penalty action. And if you go to that, you'll find links to something called the, let me just get that back in front of me, the Unconditional Freedom Project, which is sort of a monastery, they try to create a monastery environment for prisoners, in their own heads, and they work with them. And Donald has been doing a number of writings for them, and there's a couple of links to some of his pieces there, and that's where you can really see his true humanity. I don't know if Jeff, you were familiar with that program at all, but it sounds like it's right up your alley.
Oh, thank you, Abe. Next, I wanted to bounce over to SueZann Bosler. And sorry, SueZann, I didn't mean to shock you. But I just wanted your thoughts. I mean, you've worked so hard in Florida, against the death penalty. And I just want to get your thoughts on, here we are at a scheduled execution, the first in a really considerable number of years. And anyways, wanted to get your thoughts.
Oh, well, I just, it's kind of weird because we're a long state. So it's kind of hard to connect sometimes to other people in the state. So I'm hoping with, I had a lot of good times with Mark Elliott, the former director. But I'm looking also forward to Maria and her team to hopefully we can somehow connect the South Florida working with the North, so it comes across the state from all the way over to the side down here to South Florida, that we could get things going within the state and get people going in counties, more counties. And hopefully we could get more things done. I mean, it's been good that we haven't had an execution in a little time here, but boy, are they starting back up again. And I'm not sure what we're going to do, but I'm thankful that you all invited me here to be with you all to see where we're going to go with this. But I do relate a little bit to his story in a way, because as you all know, it was with a stabbing with a woman. So I kind of have a little bit to do with it too there. So it's kind of caught me.
You want to explain what you mean by that, SueZann?
Well, since my father and I were stabbed, and my father was murdered, and I survived the murder. The man stabbed my dad 22 times. I was stabbed in the head and back, but I survived. And so I kind of relate a little bit to this story. And I am really hoping and praying that we will go far, and I know we will, because of all the people that are just here in this meeting tonight. So I know it's going to go someplace. So I look forward to working with you. And Maria, I'm hoping to, I know I missed the last one that we had planned, so I apologize, but I look forward to other meetings with you and your team also, Miss Maria. So.
That sounds great.
I just wanted to interject real quick and kind of ask the panel, ask Maria, ask SueZann, maybe Abe wants to chime in, but we had a question from the chat asking about, given the politics between DeSantis and Trump, how do you think that this will affect the upcoming execution in Florida?
Well, let's kick that over to Maria if she wants to respond.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say, right? Like we know what's going to happen. We know they're running, at least likely running for president against Trump, but the nomination. And maybe this is a sign that he's going to start signing more warrants, or maybe not. I mean, we're going to focus on what's in front of us in the next 4 weeks and trying to stop the execution of Mr. Dilbeck. And then if we see another one and we start to see a pattern, maybe we'll shift our strategy. But This is the first one he's done, as we said, since the beginning of the pandemic. And I think the more pushback we can have, the better we are at having this not continue to happen. But I don't, it's too soon to speculate whether this is going to be, similar to Trump's, spree towards the end of his administration. I don't want to go there just yet.
And thank you, Maria. There's an excellent article just out this weekend from Rolling Stone magazine, which examines a lot of the Trump information and the Trump execution spree. It's still, I wouldn't say quite complete. If you get our newsletter, which just went out this evening, I've got a link to our response to that, which talks about some of Donald Trump's motivations and the reality that his first execution, the first federal execution, was in July, and he came out and said a brief something during a talk about something else in the Rose Garden the morning after that execution, and his campaign sent out an email the next day challenging Joe Biden to say why he wouldn't execute people like this. And then that's the last thing we heard from the Trump campaign and from Donald Trump publicly all the way through the entire spree of executions. And the point is that I think it didn't really poll well for him. I'll also share that there's some new polling. It's not public yet, but I've seen the top lines in Oklahoma where the question was, do you care about the death penalty when you picking who you're going to vote for? So hopefully we can get some information like that specific to Florida. But the challenge here is that we have to get Governor DeSantis to decide to reconsider this case, or it has to be stopped in the courts. And therefore, we kind of want to be nice. We don't want to go coming at him and slamming him at this point. So we'll be following the strategic lead of Floridians for alternatives to the death penalty on that. But that's a little bit of background for you.
All right. Well, thank you, Abe. Thank you, Maria, SueZann. We're going to go to Alli next to talk about the next executions coming up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alli Sullivan. I do communications for Death Penalty Action, and we're kind of going a little out of order today, just given who's with us and who's been able to join us from some of the different states. So Donald Dilbeck is actually the last execution in the month of February, I believe February 23rd. And now we're going to go back to the beginning of February. The first execution is scheduled on the 1st of February, which is this upcoming Wednesday. And it's of a man named Wesley Ruiz. He has been on death row since 2008 for killing a Dallas police officer. He was driving and the police officer tried to stop him, and it turned into a high-speed chase, which then resulted in him shooting Officer Mark Nix to death in 2007. Despite this, he is extremely remorseful for his crime and has worked every single day to better himself in these 14 years he's been on the row. And he's also maintained a close relationship with his two sons, and he often provides them fatherly guidance about life and various other topics. But part of what the Dallas jurors did not hear in 2008 at his trial was the details of his horrific childhood. You heard with Donald Dilbeck, and you will continue to hear, because with violent crime, it is super common to have horrific childhoods, including with Wesley, sexual molestation, severe neglect and abandonment by both of his parents, many kinds of abuse, homelessness. He has impairments from fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and brain damage. None of the jurors ever heard this information, nor did they hear that he already had kind of a wonky relationship with the police department, because they were known to constantly have surveilled him. They harassed him on multiple occasions, beat him. They did not believe him when he said he was a victim of crime. And none of this was heard before the jury. In addition, the attorneys that were supposed to be defending him at trial harbored their own racially biased views of their client, which in turn led to them kind of neglecting to bring up a lot of this crucial information. And a number of the jurors who voted to give him a death sentence now would have changed their mind, or would at least have given more weight to the life sentence had they known a lot of this other information about him. So all in all, it's just another devastating case. Each one is devastating in their own right, and this one is no different. I believe it's already too late to reach out to the Texas Board of Pardon and Paroles, but every day next week, continue calling the governor, and we'll put the phone number in the chat, and continue signing the petition. But it is too late to contact the Board of Pardon and Paroles at this point.
Directly, that is, because you can still call them and bother them. Well, and if you sign your petitions by our petition by tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time, that's when we'll download. It's already sent them on Friday. Friday is technically the deadline, but we're going to send them again tomorrow morning. And then normally you hear from the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles usually by 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time on a Monday before Wednesday execution. Sometimes we don't hear from them until Tuesday. And in any case, once they give their recommendation, which is entirely expected to be no, I mean, only 3 people out of more than 570 executions have had a clemency recommendation in Texas. But we're always open and praying for the best, but preparing for the worst. And in any case, once we hear from the Board of Pardons and Paroles, then we'll also resend all the petitions over to Governor Abbott. And, he has the power to not execute on the schedule. He can grant a reprieve. We all know how Texas goes. So it's really what happens in the courts. Alli, do we know if there's more litigation?
I'm not sure. I have not heard a whole lot about this case other than just these talking points that we found online for him. I want to turn to Jeff now, as we're still waiting for hopefully Michelle to join us from Missouri. Jeff is going to speak a little bit about John Ballantyne, who's another Texas execution.
Yeah, thanks, Alli. February the 8th, John Ballantyne is scheduled to be executed by the state of Texas. And this was a very horrific crime, to be quite frank. I mean, it was a situation in which Mr. Ballantyne went into the home of 3 males, 17-year-old Edward Kaler, 15-year-old Kai Geyer, and 15-year-old Stephen Watson, and shot each of them while they slept, execution style. So, of course, when I read about that, I thought to myself, so often when we engage these cases, and this is the problem with what our society does, we engage these crimes and we say, okay, that's it. Like, okay, this is the worst of the worst, and that's it. Well, Mr. Ballantyne is certainly more than just that moment. The murder happened, our murders happened in 1998. He was sentenced to death in 1999, and he has had multiple execution dates that have, he has been spared from. And the main argument in terms of all of his litigation is the horrific childhood that he faced. He was imprisoned at a very early age, abuse at a very early age, just consistent, just a life of consistent abuse by society in general. So I think it's important to also, when we think about this case, this is another situation of a person of color and an all-white jury. This, not just an all-white jury, but an all-white jury that didn't hear all of the information based on malpractice, is what I would call it, malpractice on behalf of his trial attorneys. And then there's also been litigation that argues that his earliest appellate attorneys were guilty of malfeasance as well. So when we look at Mr. Ballantyne, I think it's important to, again, to talk about poverty, neglect, violence, brain damage, all of these different things. But, I also think that this case reminds me of why we talk about all of these cases. And what I mean by that is we talk about all of these cases because these are human beings. And so even if none of this was true, even if there was, we didn't have all of these mitigating factors, this is still a human being. And surely Mr. Ballantyne is a different person than he was in 1999. And so I hope that these sorts of cases where the crimes are horrific, will remind us that we're not doing this, we're not grading on a scale here. We're not engaging these executions on a scale. We are engaging these executions, every execution. That's the reason here on the forecast and with death penalty action, that's the reason we talk about every execution. It's because every human being matters, and certainly Mr. Ballantyne does.
Thank you, Jeff. It looks like we're still waiting for Michelle.
Michelle's going to join us in just a couple of minutes. So
Okay.
we have let's take a moment and just share. Charles Keith is here from Death Penalty Action, and the brother Kevin Keith. And Charles, you have any observations? You want to give us an update on what's happening with your brother? A lot of people here have been calling or emailing and signing the petition to Governor DeWine to get him to free your brother. Charles, you're muted.
Yes, I'm Charles Keith of Death Penalty Action. I'm the Impacted Communities Liaison. The effort we put to get some of these cases looked at, the effort the lawyers put out there, and we burned these lawyers. Everything is denied, such as the information Alli brought up that the jury didn't hear. All these little shenanigans, and I continue to say that, and that should be a legal term, shenanigans, because, this is what they have to do to get a lot of these convictions. You got to do a little trickery in there, and this is where you stun your jury. And then once you get that jury to say guilty, hey, it's over. It's over. You have been bitten by the spider, you're caught in the spider's web, and you're going to be sitting there until death. And if you look at the work of some of these great lawyers, a lot of the work they've working on, imagine being an attorney and you only end up with 2 or 3 clients your entire life. You're burnt out, all because of denying good attorney work. As in my brother's case, we've totally destroyed, demolished the state of Ohio's theory on my brother's case, which he was convicted back in 1994 of a horrific crime. But, we had to basically get a celebrity. Now look at how everybody's been able to hear about this case due to the fact that Kim Kardashian got involved. Now the case is heard all over the world. But before she got involved, nobody in Ohio even wanted to hear the case. I was still saying the same thing. He's innocent. I've proven that he's innocent. The lawyers have proven that he's innocent. We're defending my brother with police documents, not theory. Police documents. Everything I've had to say and prove. Police documents. And it's still that difficult to get Kevin Keith some relief. How do we save innocent people? How do we do this? I'm looking at lawyers. There's no formula. And the fact that we've already executed innocent people. How can we be a society that sits back and knowingly know that this guy's innocent and continue to throw out punishment and torture? Rodney Reed in Texas, speaking of Texas, Julius Jones in Oklahoma, speaking of Oklahoma, and by God, Melissa Lucio. Come on. Now, I understand a lot of these cases took back in the early 90s. Everybody was bloodthirsty. But here we are 25, 30 years later, where there's been documented proof that a lot of these people are innocent. And so many other things have happened in these cases. Lawyers have put 20 years in their entire career in some of these cases. And yet the judges and the courts don't want to hear it. How can you deny a person's voice in court? I don't want to hear it. It's denied. Now you've got stacks and mounds of legal paperwork that just doesn't mean anything. And you can't bring it up at a later stage. There's so many things I found out about this game called the legal system. But I'll tell you, that system has also released some people. So I can't blame a whole lot on the system. But I tell you what, you have to start taking a look at who's in charge when that wheels start to turn. See, you got the wheels of justice, but we have to start holding people accountable who's in charge when that wheel is turning. Don't just keep calling it the system. Start giving that system a name of who's in charge when that wheel's turning. See, these guys run for offices, people get voted in, people have specific jobs and titles, but we're not holding them. We're giving them an escape. We're calling it the system. No, the wheels of justice is going to always turn. We just have to look and see who's in charge at that time. We have to start looking at our police departments coming up with these bogus cases, prosecutors lying and coming up with shenanigans to get convictions. It's basically destroys our state. Most of these states spend most of their time on the death penalty. I'm shocked. I go in Oklahoma and I hear about the death penalty. I go into Texas, death penalty. I mean, that's all you hear, death penalty. And half of them are bogus cases. In fact, if most of those cases were to go to court today, 20, 25 years later, the way the things have shifted, most of them would not even be death penalty cases. Most people's hearts have changed, their minds have changed. Organizations such as OTSI, Death Penalty Action, Ohio Innocence Project, and so many other, Witness to Innocence. I mean, there's so many others out there. Journey of Hope. We've come out and educated people. And I think that's been the biggest key, is that voices have come together and we've now gotten people's ear. And we get that heart. We get these churches involved. We get people involved. As Reverend said, we need to get people involved. We need to change their minds. We need to get information out there to them. I'm listening to you, Reverend Hood. I'm listening to you, and you're hitting the money right there, right on the money. You know, we've gotten you involved. I've seen you get so much more passionate than you have in the very beginning. This stuff is infectious. See, this is pulling the best out of you. That's what this is doing. It did it to me. It did it to Abe. This is something that, you know, I try to explain the difference to a few friends of mine, the difference between an abolitionist and an athlete. See, we're out here playing the game of death. There's no next year for these guys. See, there's the trophies are these free lives. See, we're not out here saying, okay, we missed the basket. We didn't get a touchdown. We'll be back next year. There'll be a couple of trade ups and, you know, maybe we can win it next year. No. Abolitionists, we're playing the game of death, and every move is real. Every move is real. And we have to take some, it's a lot of deaths. And then we find that we have saved some people. And I mean, that's magnificent. But the name of the game is to abolish the death penalty. And that's why it's going to take so many abolitionists to come together. We're going to formulate that team to abolish the death penalty, not only in Ohio, but throughout the United States and hopefully in the world.
Thanks, Charles. Just before you go, I want to just let people know the situation with that case. In Ohio, once the governor, and it's amazing that Kevin's lawyers were able to get him another clemency hearing, which happened a few weeks ago. And the Ohio Parole Board voted no, as they did in 2010, and Governor Strickland did not follow their recommendation, and he commuted the sentence. And now Governor Strickland's a part of the effort to get him freed, recognizing his mistake. I had a chance to speak with Governor Strickland about that directly back in, I think it was October. But so we're at the place now. The Ohio Parole Board has met, they voted, and now it's up to Governor DeWine. And that's why every day, almost for the last 2 weeks, I've been walking in for petitions. We've got all that noise going on. And you know, so that's where it's at. Governor DeWine has the power right now, unilaterally, to free Kevin Keith tomorrow. And that's why, if you haven't yet signed that petition, if you live in Ohio and you haven't written him directly, now's the time. You can be a part of the win. Alli?
Thanks, Abe. I just wanted to turn it over to Michelle Smith from Missourians to abolish the death penalty. Did I get that right? They just changed their name. The next execution after Wesley Ruiz that we spoke about a little while ago is a man named Leonard Raheem Taylor. and he has a pretty substantial innocence claim. So I just wanted to invite Michelle to talk about his case and kind of what they're doing in Missouri and how else people can get involved with him.
Good evening, all. Thank you very much for inviting me this evening. I just definitely want to say first my apologies. I am going to stay off camera. I've had a long day and I look horrid. And so I definitely don't want to expose you all to that. But my picture is of Raheem, and it says, "Will Missouri murder an innocent man?" And at this moment, it looks like Missouri will murder an innocent man in approximately 9 days. Raheem, again, like Alli said, has an substantial claim of innocence. He actually was not here in our community when his loved ones were killed. However, we had a prosecutor in our community for almost 30 years who basically unleashed a reign of terror onto the Black, brown, and poor community here. And Raheem's case, and Raheem was one of those people that were targeted. And so we have a history of a lot of injustice, prejudice, and bias in our prosecutions, in our police departments of St. Louis and St. Louis County. And today, we are asking our current prosecutor, who is a Black man, who is supposed to be progressive, and that's what we're hoping that he proves to be. His name is Wesley Bell. We are asking Mr. Bell to review the conviction of Raheem, to look into the prosecutors and the police's misconduct in that case. And we're asking him to reopen the case and have an evidentiary hearing so that Raheem and his attorneys can prove his innocence. Things are a little shaky right now, like I said, just because of the way our system is. Our prosecutor, he's a little hesitant to really get involved in a lot of these old cases that, of course, he didn't prosecute them, but, he inherited the office. So he is a little skittish in, coming to the table and really coming out with some courage to review these cases. So right now we are really trying to put pressure on him. We've got people like our U.S. Congresswoman, Ms. Cori Bush, local officials, and some other people reaching out to him. And so we definitely hope that, like I said, we have about 9 days. So we do hope that in the next few days, our prosecutor will decide to ask the court for a stay of execution so that he can conduct a thorough investigation of Raheem's case. Excuse me. And I don't know if there's anything else I should add. Was there anything specific, Alli, that you wanted to know, or what do you, or any other questions?
I mean, you briefly just touched on his case and that Raheem was not even in the state of Missouri when the crime occurred. Was there anything else you wanted to add just about the facts of the case?
Well, there are a few things specifically that stand out. Not only was Raheem not here, and, of course, often people's family members, provide them an alibi, right? And so the courts and the prosecutor may look at a situation where a husband or a wife, will provide their partner an alibi, and so they're being biased because, they are connected to that person. But specifically in this case, the difference is the victim's family saw her. After Raheem left town, the victim's family saw her, they talked to her. One of her sisters even said she loaned me $50, and she handed her, I don't know if it was $50 bill, but her sister handed her $50. And that was at a time when Raheem was not here. So his alibi doesn't necessarily only, go by what his family member said, that they were with him, but the victim's family, a neighbor of the victim also said they saw her and they saw her children. The school also saw the children. The children were at school as well. So there's way too much to prove that these witnesses can't be biased for the defense because they're not connected to him. They are family and friends of the victim, and they say that they saw her after the prosecution confirmed that Raheem left. But what the prosecution ended up doing once they verified that Raheem was not here and they got flight records to do that, what they did was they convinced the medical examiner to change the times of death. Because of course, when they first did the autopsies and they determined time of death, Raheem was verifiably not here. But after they verified he wasn't here, then the medical examiner said, oh, they died 2 or 3 weeks ago, when at first it was within a few days. And so we think that that's very suspicious. There is another forensic pathologist who looked at that doctor's statement and said it definitely needs some more investigation, because him changing his story at the last minute, such as he did, and looking at the actual autopsy report definitely points to the fact that there was some type of, suspicious behavior or conversation that the coroner had with the prosecutor. There was some collusion that happened to make him change the times of death from what was already established. So that's one of the main points about why, this case really needs more examination. And another point is the police abused Raheem's brother severely. Beat him very severely behind the police department and had him to make a statement saying his brother told him he did something, but he did it under duress. And he said, the police, they beat me, they threatened my mother. And so we have had a history of police brutality in our community. So those things are very key indicators that this case is very suspicious and it deserves more scrutiny today from our current prosecutor.
Michelle, I've got the video clips from the alibi. Is there one that would be the best one if we were going to play one? Which one would you play?
Let's see. So they are all 1 minute long. Probably 2 or 3 would kind of number 2 or 3 kind of would be into the conversation.
Let's see what we get here.
Played with them on the weekend after Thanksgiving on the 27th and 28th. I tell you what, Edwin Massey again, in trial, in the trial transcript, after Thanksgiving, he says, and I seen a male at the house, and I was just sitting in the car. He said, I was just sitting in the car and I was looking. He said, the guy that was at the house, he was getting ready to come out. Well, he said, actually came out and went to the driveway and got some out of a vehicle and went back in. But when he seen me, he ducked into the house. He said the guy was a light-skinned guy. Of course, I'm light-skinned. He said he was kind of muscular built. He said, but it definitely was not that distinguished gentleman sitting at the table.
Let's look at, where'd that go? Let's look at number 3.
Okay.
And you can find these, if you get to madpmo.org, we'll put the link in the chat, and that's where you can, there's a whole amazing kit of information and resources that have been put together for you.
My name is Leonard Taylor. I'm set to be executed February the 7th, 2023 of this year.
2004, I was with Angela and the children during the Thanksgiving holiday, which was the 25th. That was November the 25th, that Thursday. November the 26th, I left St. Louis going to California. I have a daughter named Deja Taylor. Met with her, seen her, we laughed, we talked. I had told Angela prior to leaving that I was going to meet my daughter and everything, and she was excited about it. I called back to the house and let Deja talk to Angela. Angela told her, looking forward to meeting you. You're welcome here anytime. And, the conversation ended.
And as you can tell from those recordings, Raheem is very charismatic, a very easy person to talk to. And he has always been very steadfast in the fact that he is innocent. The first video that you played, Elmer Massey is the neighbor that I spoke about, and he said he lived about 3 houses down from the victim's family. and he saw a person in her home again several days after Raheem left. Now, because the police often get, that tunnel vision we talk about, they didn't really investigate who this other man was that was at the victim's home. There was never any bringing in any other suspects or questioning anyone. They just honed in on Raheem, even though the neighbor told them, I saw some other man at her house, and they just didn't care. So our system is definitely problematic, and the police, they got tunnel vision, they honed in on Raheem, and they were not really interested in looking at any other suspects in this case. And it's very sad, because when we talk about the death penalty, when we talk about wrongful convictions, the victims' families in these wrongful convictions, they ultimately don't have justice, because the person who harmed their loved one actually has not been caught. So that's definitely one of the saddest aspects of this as well.
Wow. Well, Michelle, it's always impressive what y'all do there in Missouri. I want to introduce Margaret Phillips, who's here also. Are you still on the board of MADP, Margaret?
Yes, I am. I can't claim to be as knowledgeable as Michelle or Elise, who are the co-directors of MADP. And I can't add much to, I came on at the last minute, as you know, so I haven't briefed myself at all. A couple of things about the prosecutor by whom he was convicted. Bob McCulloch is, as Michelle brought out, he's known to be rather bloodthirsty. 2 years ago, I came across a ranking of counties, of prosecutors, jurisdictions, ranked by how many of the people they convicted had actually gone and been executed, not just got the death sentence, but went all the way to execution. And under him, St. Louis County was number 13 out of all the counties in the United States. It's the highest in Missouri. And we just had 2 executions before the scheduled one, and there are 2 more people who were all convicted under Bob McCulloch.
Well,
that's a sad thing.
Yes, and I just want to give you an opportunity also, if you want to share with us, you've seen the progression of MADP over the years, and I have to say it's just amazing what's been created. And I want to give you an opportunity to just offer any other reflections about the state of the movement there in Missouri.
Oh, yes. We started off just a bunch of very unsophisticated volunteers doing mostly just holding vigils at the time of executions. Time went on, and we finally had a variety of staff, but our current staff just really are superb. Michelle and Elise Max, who isn't here, have been not just, they've been brilliant. They've been energetic. I can't even keep up with what they're doing, much less have done it myself. So they're doing an amazing job of getting the word out in the community. Certainly in St. Louis, I can't speak for other parts of the state, but I'm sure it's happening all over.
Sure. I want to just appreciate Michelle and Elise for being open to working with us outsiders. And we were trying to figure out what's a way that death penalty action could help make a difference in this beyond bringing petition signers in. And what happens is I think Michelle, the petition delivery is going to be on Tuesday, right? The 31st.
Yes, so we are going to be at our state capitol, which is called Jefferson City, Missouri, on Tuesday, and dropping off petitions. But of course, between that date and the actual execution, which is scheduled for February 7th, there definitely will be more people that sign the petition, and we encourage that. And so actually the day of the execution, we will also return to the state capitol to drop off any additional signatures that have been signed in that time. We, of course, in this particular case, hope that our prosecutor will stop the execution before we get to that point. But at this moment, we just have to go with our established protocols and plans. So yes, so this Tuesday, we will be in the state capitol. Actually, we're not just going there for the petition drop. Normally, that's what we would do, but we also have a yearly lobby day / advocacy day. And normally it's in around April, but we moved it up to now so that we can lobby and educate our legislators the same day that we drop off the petition concerning Raheem's case. So we will be in our state capitol all day Tuesday. We will have groups of people meeting with elected officials, talking about not only, you know, to repeal the death penalty statute, but as well as talking about Mr. Taylor's case. So we hope it will be a day to educate and a day to bring in new supportive elected officials to our side.
Well, that's amazing and impressive that y'all are able to shift the schedule and make something happen. One of the things that you've been that we're in partnership with is a sign like the one that I'm showing on the screen here. This is a sign that we've had, this message that we created at Death Penalty Action last year around the Bud Stouffer case, I think in Oklahoma. But you can see we've co-branded that with MADP, and there's about 300 of them that are going to arrive around different places in Missouri tomorrow and Tuesday, depending on the shipping. And you know, people have donated from around the country and from other countries to help us pay for these and send them over to Missouri so that folks can put them up and use them. You can see they're not specific to this case, so they're evergreen, meaning that they'll last beyond whatever happens with Raheem. There's always going to be this threat of wrongful executions, and this language here is specific to reaching people that, you know, haven't really thought about the death penalty, or maybe they think they support the death penalty. The idea here is to plant the seed of doubt. Are you willing to accept a system that does this? And what if, you know, what if we got it wrong? You know, oh, I put the wrong one there. There it is. Yep. So so we got the two different images that I shared on one side and the other. Those are going in. If we get more money and there's still time, we can send some more of these. You know, we've got, like I said, 300 arriving to different parts of the state tomorrow and Tuesday. And we can do this with other states too. You know, that's really what we at Death Penalty Action want to do, is be in support to whatever the work is that the state group is doing, to the extent of our capacity. And our capacity is really up to all of the people that support what we do and respond to the opportunities that we present. You know, it's never an ask. It's always an opportunity and an invitation to participate. And you get to say yes or no. So that's the nature of what we're up to. So Michelle, is there anything else you want to add? Do you have any questions for Michelle?
I would like to add that in St. Louis tomorrow, Monday, there will be an action outside Wesley Bell's office. That is the current prosecutor in St. Louis County, who's being asked to do this review of the case. So there's still, from various angles, pressure. Gentle pressure, but pressure.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. We definitely will be at the St. Louis County Prosecutor's Office tomorrow. A group of us will try to meet with him, including a representative from the Innocence Project and other legal representatives that have done this particular kind of work before. We don't know for sure if we're going to have a meeting with him, but we definitely going to go and try. But we also will have a short press conference after that attempt at a meeting, and it is definitely about more pressure. We have new statements, like I said, from the new medical examiner, from an interrogations expert, and we will be presenting that and having discussions with the media. I don't think people truly understand what the ramifications of executing an innocent person are. I think that people, you know, oh, if you did something wrong, or, you know, if you killed someone, sometimes these are the consequences, which I've heard before, but people really don't understand how easy it is to be wrongfully convicted in this country. It's definitely not difficult. You don't have to, like Raheem, he wasn't even anywhere near the scene. So it's not like he was in the same house or, you know, near the people that did it. He literally was over 1,000 miles away, but that doesn't matter. It's very easy to convict someone wrongly. So I think that Most people just don't understand how significant it is to be wrongfully convicted and facing a death sentence. Raheem is taking it very well. He is still hopeful, and he is also assisting his attorneys. But we will definitely be at the prosecutor's office tomorrow to express the urgency of this situation. And it's very urgent and it's very dire right now. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be with you all tonight. The signs are amazing, and we definitely look forward to getting them. And we will do all that we can, to save Raheem in this moment. So thank you again for the opportunity, Abe.
And I see Melvin has a question there. Is that in the chat or?
Yeah.
Melvin, I'm going to push the allow to talk button. So if you want to unmute and share your question, that'd be great. Melvin, are you there?
He's mute. He's muted.
Oh, he's taking his hand down. So, okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Michelle. We know it was last minute for you, and Elise sent her regrets. She was stuck in dangerous traffic and didn't want to be on the phone while driving and all that. So, and that's the the wild thing about this work is we get out there, rain or shine, freezing or burning, whatever it is, we'll be out there, and that's going to be you, Michelle, and Margaret, and everybody out there in Missouri next week. So hopefully the weather is kind to you. Should it come to that, or whatever's happening, everybody that's traveling to Jefferson City, we're just grateful to be in support of what you're doing and that you're doing it so well.
Thank you again. You all have a good evening.
Bless you, Michelle. We're going to be praying for y'all in Missouri. We're thankful for your work. Certainly we're going to be praying in all of these cases. And like I said when we started, it is important to remember that just because we're talking about these cases doesn't mean that it is inevitable that these executions are going to take place. So as we close this evening, I want to encourage you to do all that you can to fight like this was your child, your mom, your dad, your cousin, your friend. And I think if we all keep going like that, I don't think we'll have too many more forecasts in the future. Abe, you got anything you want to say before we cut it out?
There's a question in the chat. There's a question in the, I'm sorry, I just saw it and I want to be sure to say this. What can people out of state do to help in Missouri? Well, on our webpage, there is an online petition and we still need signatures on it. That's at madpmo.org.
Yes, and that's and really there's that. And if you go to, I'm going to share my screen again, and go to deathpenaltyaction.org, and that is where you can find all manner of things. Just take action, and you can find the execution petitions that all these cases that we talked about. Wes Nuri's on which is on his execution is this Wednesday. Leonard Raheem Taylor next Wednesday, and then the day after in Texas, John Ballantyne, and then on the 23rd we started out tonight's program with Donald Dilbeck in Florida, and then we get into March. And the thing to notice here about this is that all of the Oklahoma executions been pushed back. And here's Richard Glossip is the first one listed for Oklahoma, and I don't think that's going to happen, which means that in Oklahoma we're getting down to July before we see a possible execution in Oklahoma, and it's quite likely that that want to get pushed back again too because of some stuff that we're up to and that the folks in Oklahoma are up to. So this is where you can find the actions for the upcoming executions. And it's important to sign the petitions and share the petitions, not because they necessarily are going to sway a politician, but because they're an opportunity to educate people. When you share it, you let people know these things are happening. And more important, it also provides a tool for the local activists, like what's going to happen in Missouri on Tuesday. They're going to carry these petitions in, right? And it's just a few thousand people. And I don't mean to suggest that that's small, but a few thousand people adding their names gives them something to carry in and say, we demand justice. We demand that you stop these executions. And that's why, it's a symbolic opportunity to act. And it's also a symbolic opportunity for an individual and an opportunity for people to be involved in. And then when you do sign a petition, or if you get to, like, for example, on the Death Penalty Action page on our petition, it links straight over to the Missouri section, the Missouri webpage at matpmo.org, where you then get the opportunity to get the toolkit and all those videos that we were showing, and you can look at all the documents in the case and see why they're saying what they're saying. And Michelle put it really bluntly, I think, when she said it's likely that Raheem Taylor is going to get executed in this moment when there's too much doubt, if not absolute surety of his innocence. That's the challenge. So on top of that, here at deathpenaltyaction.org are a number of other opportunities for action. We talked a little bit about Kevin Keith. I also want to note this week with the federal death penalty, we have, just look at you here, what we have with the federal death penalty, and this is just outrageous if you want to think about this. Last week, the federal government decided that they are going to not seek the death penalty for the guy that shot up that Walmart in El Paso a couple of years ago. 30 plus people were killed. They're not going to seek a death sentence for him, but they are, and we expect a sentencing hearing to conclude this week for the man that rented a Home Depot truck in New York and drove down a bike path and mowed people down with this truck. Before he was stopped, he killed 8 people. They're seeking the death penalty for him, but not for the white supremacist, right? What's that about? And we don't have much information about why that guy was given a plea opportunity, but that's happening in the federal death penalty. Many of you signed a petition, and many of our organizations signed the letter to the president on the federal death penalty, asking the president to demolish the death house and abolish the death penalty to the extent that he can. We're expecting the legislation to be reintroduced in Congress to pass the Federal Death Penalty Prohibition Act, led by Richard Durbin, Senator Durbin in the Senate, and Ayanna Pressley in the House, and also Representative Espaillat in the House will probably reintroduce his bill as well. So we're working on that as well. There's, just share the screen again here. This is another big thing that we're talking about in Congress, is fixing the Shin ruling, which basically takes away the ability of people facing execution and otherwise who want to claim ineffective assistance of counsel. The Supreme Court ruled that they don't have access to the federal courts. This is a correction that Congress needs to make, and we're asking Congress to do that. I'll mention Alabama. I had a phone call this morning from Tommy on Alabama's death row to tell me that they are now seeing contractors are working in the death chamber in Alabama, trying to get back going again in Alabama. They saw a big crate there. We don't know what was in the crate, but that's happening. And that points to our Pull Back the Curtains campaign in Alabama, where, if they're going to have executions, then the witnesses need to see that process from the moment the prisoner is wheeled into the death chamber in his or her wheelchair, as has happened 5 times last year. 5 people went to their deaths in a wheelchair, and otherwise walking in. But if we're going to do it, then the public's got to watch all of that. Finally, you can see this, the trailer for the film series that we're doing. One of the people featured on that is SueZann Bosler, of course, and this will be out, and we'll be rolling these videos out in a couple more months. The second set of filming is going to take place very soon, and then this project will be, you'll be seeing this, the voices of people impacted by the system. And finally, for today, I'll show you the For Whom the Bells Toll campaign project. Just jump right over here. This is, whoop, where'd he go? There we are. For whom the bells toll campaign, you can see the sign that I've got here. These are available. If you go and you fill it out, and you need to send some out to people that have signed up recently. But if there's nothing else, anybody else have any farewells before we show that video on the way out?
I think we're all good.
Okay, well, thank you all for being on the panel tonight. Thank you for those who had to leave already. We're grateful for each of you, and we're grateful for each of you who has been with us. And I guess the last thing I want to say is that, you know, it's for each of us to figure out what can we do to make the difference and to change the world one little bit. If each of us do everything that we can, then we're going to move mountains. And also, please think about, who do you know that needs to know about this? And who do you know that if you invited them to help also and gave them the opportunity to sign a petition or make a donation or go to an event or any of these things, who do you know that needs to hear this? Think about that. And also remember that you don't know what you don't know. So make that invitation to everybody. That's where it's at. So with that, take us right back over to here, and have a good night.
Right now, several states across the country are in a mad rush to execute people on death row. With so many lives at stake, communities of faith are standing up in opposition to this continuation of the cycle of violence. There are 3 simple ways communities of faith can help. First, add a special time of prayer during your services prior to a scheduled execution. We ask that you pray for the victim's family, the offender and their family, legal teams, court officials, executioners, and others impacted. Second, toll a bell for 2 minutes on the day of an execution. If you don't have a bell, display a banner or sign showing your opposition to the death penalty. Third, go to our website, forwhomthebellstoll.org, to learn more about our movement, order an action kit unique to your state, and register your participation. We must act now because time is running out for so many men and women on death row. Together, we can abolish the death penalty.
All right, live stream is over. Thank you all very much.